Luke Davico. How are you, mate?
I'm great, mate.
Mate, thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's a real privilege to be here.
Yeah, local Newcastle boy these days, mate. How long for now?
Well, you classify as a local, I think, after 10 years. So I moved to Newcastle in 2005. So, yeah, well and truly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. 2005.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, where were you born? Where'd you kick off?
Mate, I was born and bred in Gosford, so not too far. Yeah, Gosford, Baddo Bay, so not too far down the road.
Yep.
And then grew up there, did my primary schooling there till year 7. My stepfather got a transfer as a school teacher out to a little place called Young.
Yeah.
When I was so I was about 11. So we moved to Young. Did my high schooling in Young. Found my way to Canberra, and then spent my time in Canberra via England quickly, and then ended up in Newcastle. So,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I've had a bit of a journey.
Well, there's the Canberra connection, hey? For those who don't know, you obviously played for Canberra. You played for the Knights here.
Yes.
So how old were you when you cracked the Canberra side?
When I cracked the Canberra side, well, actually, it's funny story because I never really played football growing up.
Is that right?
Never at all. And when I moved to Canberra, I moved for a job in the Bureau of Statistics for the government. Got a traineeship there, and I didn't really know anyone.
Yeah.
And the guy I was working with was a coach of a local football team, Belconnen United, and he said, "Oh, do you play footy?" And I said, "No, not really, but for a social thing, I thought I'll come and have a run." So started with Belconnen United. That year we won the comp, and then there used to be guys coming to training that represented junior Raiders, and I used to go, "Oh wow, you play for the Canberra Raiders? That's unbelievable."
Yeah.
And then there was open trials at the end of the year, and I remember going, "I'm going to give this a crack." So I remember turning up to, it seemed like 1,000 trials, and just kept turning up, and then eventually got asked to play in the Jersey Fleet, or made my way into the side.
Yep.
And then it just snowballed from there. Yeah, and so I was blessed, really. End up having a great career with Canberra, that probably spanned, 12, 14 years from the juniors right through. So
that's a big career for an NRL player, mate.
Especially this day and age, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how many games did you play for Canberra?
I ended up playing just under, in total, I think my career was just under 200.
Yeah, wow.
About 196.
That's a massive career, mate.
But I say 200, it sounds better.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Round up.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's it is a massive career, because I think what is it? I think it's like, isn't it 10 or 20 games is the average?
Is the average of a first grade player.
Which is just amazing, isn't it?
People
goes to show how hard it is.
Yeah. Especially this day and age, I think it's getting harder. Players are getting bigger, stronger, faster, the contact. People seem to think, your Cameron Smiths or, your Joey Johns or your Denny Badiris who have played, 200, 300 games. That's the norm for every first grade player. But for those amazing stories, there's also so many guys that got to play one game, blew a knee or never came back. And so, you're right, the average is really, really small.
Yeah. So how old were you when you actually made first grade?
First grade, I was 20.
You were 20?
Yeah, 20.
And that's pretty young.
Pretty young,
Isn't
yeah. So I can remember coming home, playing the juniors, and I'd been out for a night at dinner, and that was back in the days of, no mobile phones or whatever. We had an answering machine. So we'd come home at the end of the day, you'd come home, if your red light was flashing on the answering machine, you'd go, "Yes, we've got a message."
Yeah.
Been out to dinner and pressed play, and it was Tim Sheens. He was the first grade coach at the moment. He said, "Luke, Tim Sheens, I want you at first grade training tomorrow. You're in the team." And I just went, wow.
And you had been playing reserve grade prior to that?
Been playing, under 21s in reserve grade.
Yep.
Which was, back then, it's a great platform leading into first grade, because even though you're a young kid, you're playing against grown men for a period of time. So I think, some kids these days just go from playing, they're 16 or 18, playing against their own age. They're thrust into first grade and they're playing against men that are 30, whatever. So, and their bodies just aren't up to it. But it was an amazing time. And it's not until you probably look back that, what a wonderful time in my life it was, and got some fond memories.
Yeah.
So I feel really blessed with my journey and my time at Canberra
yeah,
and of course Newcastle. So
yeah. Well, Tim Sheens, mate, he's one of the best, isn't he?
One of
as
the
far
best.
as coaches go. So, how did he impact your world as far as from a leadership perspective and what he brought out of you? I'd love to hear about what kind of I'm fascinated with how leaders like that get the best out of their players, or leaders in general.
Tim was amazing. Tim was like a father figure, I guess, back then, and he really knew how to pull you aside and get the best out of you, whether it be on the field or off the field. Yeah. And unfortunately, Tim left, I think, after might have only been my second or third year in first grade.
Yeah.
And I think then I probably lost my way a bit because I didn't have that coach or a bit of a mentor to, pull you aside. Because I think a lot of the coaching, you look at the great coaches, Tim Sheens, Wayne Bennett, they don't try and reinvent the wheel. Yeah. It's about they getting the best out of each individual player, what makes them tick. Yeah. And, I think that's why Wayne Bennett's been so successful, the connection he has on a personal level with his players.
Yeah.
I was very blessed to start with Tim. Yeah. And I had some other great coaches along the way. Craig Bellamy was my first coach in President's Cup.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how cool is that?
Oh, it's amazing.
So tell us about that. So is he, well, obviously he's known for a certain style of coaching now. Was he like that then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, Bellyache's always been about hard work. Mm-hmm. That's how he got his break. He just wasn't the most talented player, just through sheer hard work. And that's something that's stayed with me. Again, not only through coaches but through parents. Hard work's the key. As long as you're prepared to roll your sleeves up, your time will come. So Bellyache was very intense. I think if you watch the TV, he probably hasn't tempered all that much. But he's just so passionate. He's meticulous in what he does, and again, it's just through hard work. Yeah, he's just old school hard work.
Because you would have played with him as well.
No, I just missed him. He was in reserve grade, and I was just coming through in 21s. And I remember the first time we met. Actually, it was at a tavern in Canberra, and we were out, and Craig said, "Oh, you're Davico." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, I've seen a couple of your last games in 21s. I'm the 21s coach for next year." And I said, "Oh yeah, can I buy you a drink?" And he said, "Oh, your other coach said you would." I asked them about you, and they said, "Oh no, Davico won't make it. Too much of a party boy, pretty boy."
Oh yeah.
And then, sure enough, as I said, I'd just turn up to training. I'd try and win every 400 or everything. So it was too hard not to get picked.
Yeah, good.
And,
you worked hard.
Worked hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same. I used to see. It used to be a little bit disheartening actually, because you'd be busting your guts at training, and then you'd see guys that were scouted from out of town. And they go, "Oh, this guy's just come into town. He's on a contract at 10 grand or something like that." And back in the day, you go, "Oh wow," and they go straight in, and here you were busting your guts, and still just, I wonder if my turn going to come to get a contract. Yeah. And but you just got to keep just turning up. And and that's what I did. I just had I guess underneath the determination that I'll grit my teeth and give it my best. So
it's funny, isn't it, mate? Because that's what success is, isn't it? It's just keep turning up.
Keep turning up.
It's funny because there's ingredients which we might talk a little bit about today.
Yeah.
But that's got to be up there, eh? It's got to be just. Yeah. You've got to just keep turning up.
It's not rocket science.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a few key, as you said, there's lots of other little ingredients, but if you haven't got a few of the really big ones, which is hard work, if you're not prepared to put in the hard work, well, you're no chance.
Yeah.
And, not everything's going to go your way, but it's like, as you said, you just got to keep turning up, whether you're feeling good, bad, something's gone against you, you feel like you've failed, just keep turning up.
Yeah.
And eventually you'll get a break.
Yeah, you get a break.
Yeah.
So even the hard work things, there's some nuance to that, isn't there? Because, I know just over my life, like, you work hard.
Yeah.
There's a really cool saying that says, work harder, smarter.
Yes.
and I don't think I've always got that mix right.
Yeah.
And so you're just working hard, but sometimes you can just be, that can't be the only measure.
Yeah.
That smarter part. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, what's my actual goal here?
Yeah.
What are we trying to achieve? Like, I'm working my butt off and I'm going nowhere. I felt like a big part of our, business career, it was like 3 steps forward and 5 steps back.
Yeah.
And then you just work harder. And then it's funny, isn't it? Because you just want to make sure that you're working harder in the areas that are really making a difference.
Yeah, it is. It's so, you just picked my brain exactly there. It was about, as you get, and I think that comes further down the path of your maturity.
Yeah.
Is working smarter, not harder. And because, as you said, you can work, if you just continually work harder, doing the same thing, like you come to the point of exhaustion and you're not getting the results. So I think it's so true and so poignant that you just find a way that you can actually work less, but at a different level. And I think that again comes to how we're wired and how we're geared growing up.
That's a good thought.
It's in our makeup that if you, like I knew when I ran my businesses that if I got a certain job done and then if I went home and then went down those areas, looked at other avenues to make a difference, and I wasn't still on the floor or working hard or whatever, that I couldn't relax, I couldn't rest, couldn't relax, because that's the way I was conditioned. Going, no, you got to be there, you got to keep doing stuff, and no one will do a job as good as you do it. So you'd push people out of the way. Whereas as you get older and a bit more aware, you go, no, it's okay. I can step back.
I love it.
Yeah, for my own well-being, and let someone give them the job, give them the role, and give them the actual confidence. And actually take a step back and breathe. Yeah,
it's so cool you're saying that. Yeah, I remember. Well, we talk about it a little bit, and it's called the concept that we use here is called worker, manager, leader mindsets. And you just nailed it. If you've got a worker's mindset, you see time as something to spend.
Yes.
And if you're sitting down having a breather, it's like you just feel like you're not failing, you're just wasting your time.
Yes.
But sometimes we need to step back and look at the big picture and go, all right, well, what are the nuances here? So your game, for instance, like you've got to work hard getting back to, you as a player. I'm sure you've got to work hard on fitness, and you've got to work hard on really, understanding the game and where your strengths and weaknesses are. But there's a nuance to rugby league. What was your nuance? What did you bring to the game, do you think, that needed a bit of finesse, that wasn't so much about hard work and effort, but it was about, it might have been an offload?
I think, the little things, I suppose, that you just added to your game. As you said, there was a core set of values, I suppose, based around hard work. When you're in the front row, you haven't got much of an option if you're not working hard. But as you said, just adding little things to your game, an offload, a little tip on, how you dominate a tackle.
So that's what I mean. It's like, because that's what Bellamy actually mastered, didn't he? In the end, it was like that wrestle in the tackle. Little nuance, like it's like people weren't even thinking about it. Obviously, you had to hold them on the ground, but there's a nuance to even holding people on the ground.
Absolutely. People just think on the surface that it's just rugby league and that's an easy game. You just run up, you tackle hard, and essentially sometimes that's all it is. As long as you run harder than the opposition and tackle harder, you're a fair chance of winning the game. But all those little things, winning the wrestle on the ground, getting your head in, where your feet are in a tackle, how you hold the ball, like there's so many little intricacies that it's. My daughter's actually playing now, and I try and pass on a little bit of knowledge to her. She's only quite green; she's only relatively started playing. And I say, darling, as long as you're improving each game, don't beat yourself up or whatever. Like, that's it. Just improve on your game last week, but it's not as easy as what you think, and she's starting to learn that now. And it's those little things that you've got to work on. And that's not only in football, as you said, that's in business, in in career, in lifestyle, in relationships.
It's so true.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so true. And I guess that's good, because that worker, manager, leader mindset, it's like, when I first got into business, it was a worker mindset.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I'm going to move the needle just by working hard.
Yeah.
That's the only metric.
Yeah.
Work hard.
Yeah.
And it'll, and like you said, and that's like, and it'll turn up.
Yeah.
And then you start to realise there's some nuance to that.
Yeah.
And so what we found was that, when you're a leader, you got like 15 different hats you're wearing.
Yeah.
When you're a business owner.
Yeah.
And I know you've been a business owner.
Yeah.
And so I want to really drill down on that.
Yep.
And then you got 15 caps to wear. You got like however many staff to manage.
Yep.
You got sales. You've got admin. You've got human relations. You've got all this stuff going on. And you realise pretty quickly that working hard is not the only measure.
No,
absolutely. There's a lot to juggle. In fact, you actually need to be able to stand back, see the big picture, and get those little things in your game right.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do I tackle this? How do I do that? In a business sense, it's how do I get the best out of that person? And then it's how do we increase sales, but how do we also carry the weight? One of the things we talk about here a bit is, success has weight. You as a football player, it's like you dream to play for Canberra, and then the weight of success starts to bear down on
expectation.
Yeah.
It's funny, as you were just saying, because you get to a certain point and that needle moves so far, and then it's like it's just idle. And that's when you sort of know, okay, hard work's got me so far, but if I'm working harder and harder and the needle's not moving, what do I need to change?
What nuance?
But how do you, like, as you being a fellow business owner, like, how do you learn that? Whether what you said, when you got so many hats on, and you just all your attention's into so many different things, you don't have a lot of time. You learn on the hop.
Yeah, you learn on the hop,
probably by experience, and again by not doing something right or failing at something, and then still continuing on. So it's like, if you don't have that time and space to actually ask someone, or you've got to work it out yourself.
Yeah, you got to lean on other people's experience, ideally.
Yeah,
don't you?
Yeah, and I
which we're not great at.
No.
Yeah.
No. Again, that's a lot of us, particularly men in general, aren't great at asking for help.
Yeah.
Because you feel like it's a. Again, I'm weak, or, I haven't reached my goal, or, it's an expectation that, you should have it sorted, Dan, you're all over that. And then if you go, well, I'm actually not.
Yeah.
And that's something that's shifting as well, that needle, I suppose, with mental awareness and well-being, and,
It's so true.
Yeah.
Mate. Which wasn't about, was it?
Nah.
It's fairly new. I don't know, it's the last 10 years or so.
10 years, I reckon, it's taken off.
Yeah. So one of the nuances for me, just to bring some clarity around what we're talking about, is I wasn't a learner.
Yeah.
And it's horrible, because I felt like what happened was that learning's actually quite inspirational.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't like to be inspired necessarily, because it made me feel like I was falling short.
Yes.
It made me feel like I was failing.
Yeah.
So you might want to, you might read something, read a really good book, and it's like, oh, how good's this?
Yeah.
And then you look at your own life and you go, how crap's that?
Yes.
And so I feel like I stood back. One of the nuances of, other than just working hard, what other little metrics have we got? Well, one of them would be learning, and I wasn't doing it.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't a self-learner, and so it was pretty much just the only metric left was work hard.
Yeah.
And there was a major breakthrough, I guess, for me, and it was coming to the absolute end of my ability to be able to keep going.
Yeah.
It wasn't working.
Yeah.
It was absolutely 3 steps forward, 5 steps back.
Yeah.
Then I just started to read a couple of books.
Yeah.
And then implement it bit by bit.
Okay.
Deal with the mindset stuff, you're not a failure, mate. It's just understanding we're all in the same boat and we're all not meant to be good at everything. And so what about you, mate? How have you, as a footballer, improved yourself, sort of your mindset and the way you turn up for a game, and, the way you deal with stress, and then also as a business owner?
Yeah, it's funny you touch on that, because I think we all struggle with, self-doubt and... our ego gets in the way. You said you weren't a learner, and it's like, because you feel like a failure, you know, if you read something, and that's just not the case. As you get older, I think you do become wiser, particularly if you learn stuff and you put it into play. But like I think we touched on it earlier, like if I knew back then what I knew now, it'd be a different story. But that's just, you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and unfortunately that's not the way it is. And we can look back on our own journey and our own experience and go, oh, you know, I wish if I went back I could change that. But I think it's about as you get older, you know, as you said, doing some work on, you know, self-awareness, trying to be a bit more conscious, accepting who you are, you know, instead of, you know, looking back and thinking...
Well, that's a big one.
It's huge. So many guys are, you know, we have things around, you know, shame or, you know, regret and all those, where it's... You've got to realise that they're just... that's just part of life, but look more on the positive side of things of, you know, what you've achieved and, you know, some obstacles that you've overcome and... but we all get caught in that cycle. You know, I'm sure everyone does. And as you said, it's becoming a bit more mainstream these days that people can talk to whoever, talk to their mates. I mean, there's groups, you know, whatever you need to do. But, you know, I think, as I said, I look back on my career and I with a bit of, not disappointment, but, you know, sometimes I find it hard to talk about because I don't feel I can, you know, people will come up and say, oh, you know, you had a great career and this and that, and I sort of go, oh, yeah, but, you know, I could have achieved this and I could have achieved that. And again, it comes down to your self-awareness, you know, snapping yourself out of it, going, hang on, I had a great career. You start off only ever wanting to play one game. And so if I had played one game, I would have been happy with that. But then as you get further down the path, other things become possible. And then so I think your standard or your expectation on yourself becomes higher and higher. And if you don't achieve those, I guess you're a bit down. You know, I came close to, you know, representative honours, and either through poor form or poor choices or injury, that never happened. So, you know, for an example for me, I look back now and when I see those games, I just go, you know, if people talk about your teammates in a glossy way or whatever, I get a bit coy because I just feel like I just wasn't quite good enough. And that can flow over into, as I said, into every other part of your life. You know?
Well, it does, doesn't it? Because, again, it's one of those nuances. So we've got working hard, we've got being a self-learner, and then it's like your mindset, the way you think about yourself, the way you think about your past. And it's a massive thing because it holds you back for your future. Because I know this about you, mate. I don't want to give you a rap. I mean, you were 1 or 2 years into your career and then you were playing in the grand final. With some of the best rugby league football players that have ever graced the game. Talk to us a little bit about that, because you had an amazing career.
It was crazy, and sometimes I still pinch myself, and that's the thing where the balance between actually giving yourself a bit of credit, I suppose, when you look back and as a 20-year-old you force yourself into a side full of superstars, so you sort of have to go, well, I must have been doing something right.
Exactly.
And then particularly this day and age, I don't really have a lot to do with football anymore. You know, there's a lot of life stuff going on in life. So, but when you hear people like, you know, Matthew Johns or the commentators going, you know, those sides back in the mid-90s, the Broncos and the Canberra, were two of the best teams they've ever seen ever. And I look and
you're in it.
And I'm in it.
Mate, it's massive, isn't it? Huge.
It is massive, and I guess it can come from maybe your childhood as well. When you, as I said, as you get further down the path in life, and you do a bit of work on yourself, and you look back at, you know, your childhood and I guess why you are the way you are and what makes you tick. And it can go back to, you know, as early as your childhood. Well, there's like research and studies on that, you know, maybe that you were brought up, you know, not thinking you were good enough, you know, something you never did was right. So, you know, I said I still struggle this day and age when people talk about those sides or whatever, going, oh, like, you know, oh, what am I doing in there, sort of thing. You know, but then then I have a moment. I go, oh, hang on a minute, like, give yourself a pat on the back, and you know, and even as I said, it stems down into your relationships, into business. I can even remember, like now we're talking about, you know, I had a business for 17 and a half years, and I look back now and go, oh, I wish I'd have done that better. Yeah, I wish I'd have done that better, instead of going, you know what, I did the best I could with the tools I had, and yeah, it's provided us with a lifestyle and a platform now to move forward. But again, our conditioning and our mindset can err the needle back the other way onto going, oh, you know, I failed at that, you know, I could have done this. So it's a real challenge, I like to call it. I was going to say struggle, but same, I try and use the words that are more productive. It's a real challenge, you know, day to day, and trying to just get your head right. Yeah. You know, it's what's in your mindset, because as I said, we can go down a path where we're just in a negative loop, or you know, not it's, some people can't get themselves out of that. Well, it's
so true, and it's like, it's a human way, but I really feel like it's a bit of an Australian way too, isn't it? You know, we don't want to give ourselves a rap. Yeah. You know, and I see the like the benefits with that. I see, you know, like where Aussies, it's just like knockabout, and, you know, whatever. But there's a real danger to it as well. Like, I mean, because, you know, look at your career. You know, you've got nearly 200 games at first grade. You played in a grand final. Did you play in one or more grand finals?
No, just one.
The one grand final, I
didn't actually play in it. I was on the bench.
Yeah. So. And so here you are, though.
Close, but not good enough.
But here you are, mate, in a side, and you've made a side that's the best side that's ever played rugby league. Yeah. Right? And so then you've played 200 games for two different clubs. And then you've had a career as a businessman. You owned a business for 17 years. Yeah. And as human nature goes, we look at it and we see all the near misses and all the failings and all the issues. Yeah. But we don't, I think it's a human thing, but an Aussie thing. Yeah. But we don't, like you were saying, we don't stop long enough to go, bugger me, not many business owners own a business for 17 years.
Absolutely.
Do you know the stats on business? Yeah. Like it's 3 years.
3 years, 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years. Yeah. And the stats on the NRL, as we've already spoken about, is 10 games? Yeah. You know, and so when we look at, you know, and again, we're not so much talking about you personally, we're talking about human nature. Yes. When you've got that successful a life, and we look back and we go, it's like, what are we doing to ourselves? Yeah. It's a form of torture.
It is a form of torture. Yeah, it's as you said, it's just about finding that balance, because I think there are people out there that can blow wind, you know. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, blow their own trumpet. Yep. But as you said, we don't give ourselves enough credit. And I think, as you touched on, in Australia, like it's we have the tall poppy syndrome. Yeah, we do. If someone's doing well, you know, we want to chop them down,
which is horrible.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Because it's a dynamic I really feel like. Well, I'm glad we're talking about it for one, but I really feel like we need to touch on, because imagine that your kids, right, were achieving amazing things, and then somebody come up to them and said, but what about, and what about, you know, and it's like, as a father, you'd be like, mate, you joking, you'd rip their head off. Yes. And yet we do it to ourselves. Yeah. You know, I was telling this story once, just recently at a workshop. I hope I haven't told this story before. I tell multiple stories, mate. I lose track on where I'm talking about. But I remember we're in Tamworth, and my young fella was playing footy. Yep. And there was somebody on a sideline, fully grown man, berating him. And he was only young at the time. Like he was like, I don't know, maybe 13, 14. But not just, you know, slagging him off. Like really personal stuff. Yeah. Anyway, this particular son of mine's a legend, you know. Like he, not only is a really good footy player, but he's just cool, calm and collected. He never really gets fussed about stuff. Yep. Anyway, so this one day, he was really visibly sort of shaken and withdrawn. And so I'm like, well, that's unusual. You know, pulled him aside and said, hey, mate, you all right? You feeling all right? And he's like, yeah, I'm all right. And I started, you know, pressing him a little, and he's like, oh, Dad, you know, there's this bloke on the sideline. And I saw red, mate. And I tell you what, you know, if I was there, it would have been carnage, because you know, he was whatever. Anyway, I don't want to think like that. But anyway, so I was able to, as a father, go, mate, you've done so well. You've done so well. Yeah. You're a legend, mate. And I said, and don't you listen to that fella. And you know what you would say to your kids.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it was a massive lesson to me because I was there for my son, as you would be for your kids.
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, well, who's in your corner?
Yeah.
As in your me.
Corner, yeah.
Who's catching your thoughts?
Yes.
Who's making sure that you're not bullying yourself?
Yeah.
And so I love what you're talking about, mate, because you've had a really successful career, and we can all what we do as humans is we look at the success, we look at the highlights, we don't understand the background, and I think again as humans and as Aussies we're hard on ourselves, but it's worse than that. We bully ourselves, and then when we wonder why we miss opportunities. You know, we wonder why we fall over the finish line. Or don't quite make it or whatever. And it's because our mindset's telling us the whole time that we're not enough.
Yes.
And for me, as a parent, to see it so black and white, but with me, it's like, I'll just allow those thoughts to run through my mind every day. You know?
Yeah, it's I think it's funny because I think the way you dealt with that situation with your son is amazing, you know. The example you showed for your son, I suppose, how you handled that. You said it might have been a different story if you're at the game, but I'm sure the message that you passed on to your son wouldn't have gone unnoticed. He would have seen it and gone, "Wow, that's how you deal with those situations." You know, my dad's given me positive affirmations, and you know, and then, as you said, there's still no one there to see how you're processing and dealing with it. But you know, the way you handle it and what your son witnessed, I'm sure he would take something out of that, you know, and pass that down, you know, if he's in the same situation years down the track. But, I really find it, I struggle in this day and age. I can't comprehend how we still are as a society, how people can still go to young kids' games of football, and doesn't matter what it is, it's everywhere, you know, and they abuse kids and they abuse referees, and I'm just like, what example are we giving, you know, to our kids? And
everyone's got an opinion. And
I you know, that's the thing. Everyone does have an opinion, and it's not right or wrong. And you know, the way my mindset is like, you know, I respect everyone's opinion, but it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. And it's like, the people that try and shove their opinion down your throat and just have the blinkers on and think, no, that's all it is. A lot of it's like based around religion and politics. But you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I think we also need to sit back and go, well, that's not the only opinion or the only way to look at things. You know, I think you've got to take the blinkers off and just be a bit more rational and reasonable and go, okay, well, you know, I don't generally agree with what you're saying, but people, I think, struggle with that. Like, you know, there's a saying I always say, because I think a lot of older people are sort of set in their ways, I think, because they didn't have the tools and everything that we have this day and age. So as a parent, you were touching on before, I think you just try and evolve from, you know, your parents. You know, you obviously have their traits and whatever they've passed down, but I think you just try and do things better. Same as like when your kids and my kids grow up, I think they've seen me, you know, do a few things, you know, probably the wrong way, or that they would probably try and look and go, well, you know, I see what Dad was trying to do there, but we'll just, you know, put our own spin on it, maybe do it a little bit better. But whenever I'm in a conversation with people and they're either not listening or they just want to get their point across, I go, look, I understand what you're saying, but I said, I'll just say this: what you believe is true, the opposite is also true. And they go, oh, again, it comes down to perspective.
We talked about that before, didn't we?
And it's saying, and people go, oh, but hang on, no, that's not. I go, well, that's true, because it depends how you look at something. You might think that's cup's pretty, I might think it's ugly. So again, it's just, and you got to go, okay, well, you know, I accept your take on it. And move on.
And it's funny because what the bottom line should be, at the end of the day, is each other. Hey, so like, you know, if old mate had an opinion, for instance, just using that example again, but he really cared about people.
Yes.
He probably would have kept his opinion to himself.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, and because I'm the father, obviously I care about my son, and so I help him, and you know, and then that's that self-care as well.
Yeah.
In regards to how we think, you know, because perspective's a funny thing, because we believe lots of things that aren't true.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important, mate, for us to really manage our mindset.
Yeah.
I remember this really good example of this was, I think it was Prince. I forget Prince Charles. He's the king now, isn't he?
Yes.
So William. That's right,
yeah.
Prince William. Okay, so there's this picture, right, and he's got out of a car, and he's stuck his finger up with this crowd of people, because there's a camera shot from the right, you know, and he's here looking forward, and there's this camera shot from the right, and he's like sticking his finger up at everybody. Yeah. Oh, shock horror, look at me.
Yeah.
Well, you get the front on shot.
It's completely different.
And he's got 3 fingers up.
Yeah.
You know, he's talking about whatever to somebody and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But, you know, you look at it from the right and you're right. You look at it from the front and it's completely different perspective.
Yes.
And so this is the thought, is that we trust our thoughts too much.
Yeah.
You know? So imagine if we didn't, just as again, using the example, imagine if I didn't pick my young fella up.
Yeah.
And say, hey, mate, bro, you can't think like that.
Yeah.
And then he started to believe what old mate said.
What old mate was saying on the sideline.
You know?
That's it.
And the thought that we're sort of tracking here is that we do this to ourselves.
Yeah.
We believe things that we think are true, but it's just our perspective.
Yeah.
And that's why I actually love the sporting world and business world, because, say, in the sporting world, you get different perspectives. You know, so you have a coach who's saying, hey, mate, you did really well here. This is where I need you to tighten up. And so you get a little bit of black and white feedback, and you're not left to your own devices.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that for a sec, about the coaches that you had. Tim Sheen's maybe versus some of the other coaches. How do they bring you perspective, and how do they bring the best out in you while telling you the truth?
Yeah. I think, as you said, our mind's the most powerful thing we have.
It is, mate.
And you've got to be so careful, because what you tell yourself, you end up believing. You know, there's
even if it's not right.
No, even if it's not right, there's a real physiology behind that. It's so true. What you think, you become.
Yeah.
You know, there's research and studies on it. In regards to my coaches, like Tim Sheen's was one. He just knew how to say, you know, a few words, giving, I suppose, you know, belief. Again, that belief as a young kid, but also wouldn't let you get your head in the clouds. Yeah. So it was, you know, he'd pull you into line, but in a constructive way, and say, listen, you know, I can remember, you know, I'd played half a dozen first grade games and thought I was like, you know, the bee's knees, and then all of a sudden, you know, I was just still going out, because I was going out and drinking with Laurie Daly and Mal Meninga, going, oh, this is the best. And he'd pull me in the office and said, listen, I don't know who you think you are, but he said, you're not a first grader until you've played at least 50 first grade games. He said, so these blokes have been doing it for years. Pull your head in. Yeah. And so things like that, and you go, oh, wow, you know, just a gentle nudge.
So that's good perspective.
Yeah, that's good perspective. Didn't tear strips off you, didn't whatever, just, you know, and he had presence. Yep. So I had Tim, I had Mal, Matty Elliott.
So Matty Elliott, so he was a coach.
Yes, Mal Elliott was a coach, right. So he was in Canberra.
Yeah, I forgot Mal was a coach as well.
Yeah, then Mal took over. So I had Mal, Matty Elliott, Michael Hagan when I moved up here. Yep.
Vastly different coaching styles?
Yeah, absolutely different, Hagues was great up here. Hagues just let pretty much... Hagues understood each individual, knew who he had to sort of speak to. He's a pretty laid-back coach, and I had a friendship with him when he was in Canberra. He was at the lower grades, but he just knew guys that had been around for years. He knew that if they trained hard and played hard, he didn't really have to say too much to them. He'd just come and just say a little word, whereas the younger guys, you know, it was a different story. So I've had a really good array of mentors, I suppose, and you know, and even then, you can talk about their coaching skills and stuff. I look back again as a player and go, I would have hated to have coached me. Yeah, like, you know, I went through a phase there where I was just didn't really care. You know, came into sort of a lot of money, I suppose, and ego and that, and it's, you just look back and go, there's a phase there where to the core, I liked who I was, but what are my actions and my behaviours, I look back and go, man, I'm so glad I've evolved. And again, as you said before, like you look back, you can't get that time back. So at that moment, it was what it was, and I think every person goes through those phases in their life.
Absolutely.
None of us go through as a clean skin or making all the right decisions, and you've got to learn sometimes by your mistakes.
Yeah.
So so as much as the coaches had an influence, as I said, I look back. But not in a bad way. I look back and I acknowledge that that's part of growing up.
And it is, and there's the balance, isn't it? Because we don't want to beat ourselves up like we talked about, but we need to be realistic.
Yes.
We need to be able to pull ourselves into line or allow ourselves to be pulled into line.
Yeah.
And that's super important. I feel like marriage is, and marriage and family is a really good institution, if you will, to pull you back into line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like our family, they know us.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I
right.
mean? Doesn't matter how high we get.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, mate.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to be beating ourselves up, but we don't want to think more highly of ourselves than we ought to.
Absolutely.
Because they're both dangerous places to go.
They can be detrimental, either side. So it's about really finding that balance. And as you said, I think you need to do some work, self-assessment, self-awareness, to really, just to really work on yourself and have those people around. As you said, family's pretty good because a lot of them have no filter, so they'll bring you down from your high horse. Or
that's right, but in a way that's loving.
Yeah,
and I think that's the thing.
That's
getting back to the key. The key is that we need to be able to care for each other.
Yeah.
And care about each other. And blokes do that differently. We're not talking about having a cuddle or anything like that. But it's like, all right, well, do we really care about coaches, for instance? If they really cared about their players,
yes,
and the best do, they're going to help them professionally and personally. They're going to help them. They're going to tell them the hard truth. But they're not going to put them in a position where they feel like they're failing every day either. It's interesting though, bro, because you've played nearly 200 games in the NRL. You're surrounded by players. You're surrounded by coaches. You're good, bad, and in between, and then you retire and become a businessman. And that's obviously probably the majority of people who listen to this podcast. Then I would imagine that you're somewhat isolated from that support network. And as a businessman, all the same mindset requirements are there. You can't be too hard on yourself, but you can't be too full of yourself. And then it's like, who's your mentor? I'll tell you one thing with business owners, and you've been one, so it's like, we do it alone, and we don't need to. Like, who's our coach? Who's in our corner? Who's our team? What did that look like for you? The transition from footy to business?
A lot of guys struggle with the transition. To be honest, I was ready to retire, ready for the next chapter. So, and I always, people go, "What are you going to do?" You must have something to fall into. But I've always had and again, this comes back to, I suppose, a positive belief. I've always just had my own personal belief going, it's going to be okay.
It'll work out.
It'll work out. So I've always sort of had that bit of self-understanding with myself going, it'll be okay. Even at times where it's actually got to the point where going, oh, hang on a minute. Even when I did retire, I started looking at a few business opportunities, and I think it was about 6 months down the track, and nothing still had popped up, and financially you start to stress a little bit, and things weren't happening. I was going, but then I still had that belief that it'll be okay, and that ability in myself, because in that time I was still doing things just to make ends meet, and it comes back to just hard work. I went, I ended up mowing lawns. Mowing lawns. I created little coffee carts. I was selling coffee on the weekend just to keep me occupied and just keep the wheels turning until something popped up. But I always knew that I never wanted to work in an office or be a 9-to-5er. I always wanted to be my own boss. And that's something that I knew. I tried, as when I moved to Canberra when the bureau, it wasn't,
Wasn't your cup
wasn't
of tea,
my
mate.
cup of tea. You know, and I didn't apply myself too well because it just didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't a passion. It didn't float my boat, and you know, had a great time there. But then, I just always knew from both my parents had that entrepreneurial skill, and I just went. And so when Goldberg's came up, the owner approached me, and a few people saying things. Said, "Oh, what experience do you have?" And I said, "None." But I'm up for a challenge, and I know that I can. That skill set from rugby league switches straight over into business. You know, teamwork, communication, you know, responsibility, hard work.
So important.
Yeah, so important. So
they're the ingredients, mate.
Yeah.
No, some of the ingredients.
Yeah, some of the ingredients. There's so many more that you, as you said, when you don't have a business mentor, when you go in, how do you learn? Well, you just learn by doing and making mistakes. And I made those till the day I left.
17 years though.
17 years.
Massive.
So that transition, when I took that on, it was I could see some potential in the business that wasn't there. So again, that was like, you know, I went great, and I was blessed as well. I bought an established business, something that was already an institution in Newcastle. Yeah. So the pressure for me came from maintaining that. Yeah. There was an expectation, you know, you don't do this, you don't change. And so for the first, well, probably even until I left, I was still appeasing staff because I thought, well, I've got to keep them happy and they're working for me, you know, they're running the business. So and that was probably to my own detriment. You know, I wasn't a hard enough probably taskmaster. So they're just like, that's one of the things I learnt, you know, looking back in the 17 and a half years. But again, it's just how you are. If I was a certain way, I hear people talk about bosses and whatnot, and they go, oh, they're an absolute prick, or they drove them too hard and they lasted there, you know, 2 minutes. So for me, it was just about, my biggest thing was just keeping the wheels spinning. The Goldbergs, when I first took over, someone used the analogy as a slow-moving train. You just got to keep the wheels turning.
Well, you did a cracking job.
Thank you.
Mate, I go there nearly every day still, you know. I know you've moved on since, but it's a real legacy to you, mate. Like we talked about, any business owner that's been in a business that long is doing something right. One of the bigger things that I think is a real credit to you is that when we weren't living in Newcastle but still living in Tamworth, we'd come to Newcastle and we'd go to Goldberg's, you know. And there was this guy who was there every time, you know, we were there. So he's an older guy, and he, you know, every night that we were there for dinner or whatever, he was there, and we'd come back a year later and he'd be there again. Well, how long was he there all up?
Richard, and that was the thing. Richard was there for almost 30 years.
See, that is unbelievable.
That's amazing. 30 years in the one establishment.
And
hospitality.
And you played a major role in that, you know, and as far as leadership goes.
It is. You know,
you're people hanging around is pretty rare.
And that's the thing. You just go, oh yeah, whatever.
But it's rare.
People go, like the fact that I had some staff there from the day I took over to the day I left, I still had people that had been there for, I said, Richard was with me for my whole 17 and a half years. I had other people there, dishes and cooks and that were there for 15, 13 years. And when they came, they never left.
Mate, we as you know, we 1,000 feet deep, leadership, team and culture development. I can tell you one of the hardest things that employers face is staff turnover. For you to be able to have achieved that, you did something right.
And that was one of the biggest things when I left, because as much as the staff drive you mad, and towards the end I wasn't enjoying it with that interaction, because it was a lot of pressure, with just people think, oh yeah, we had a good day today, but you walk out and you do the figures and you're losing money on a busy day. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes with cost of goods and electricity and all that stuff. So you're dealing with that internal pressure, whilst, you know, still trying to put a smile on, not only for your staff but for the customers. But in saying that, you know, it was a wonderful business and created a wonderful lifestyle. And some of those staff, that's what was really hard when I left. They became like family, you know, and even though I was moving on for the best interest of myself, you know, I still felt like I let them down, you know.
It's that feeling again, isn't it? It's like we've always got to get into those extreme pendulum swings. Because just I picked up on what you said before too, as a leader, you know, and so let's talk about that pendulum again. It's like really, really tough leader.
Yeah.
Really, really soft leader.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to be a really, really tough leader.
Yeah.
So I'll be a really, really soft leader.
Yeah.
Like, rather than meeting in the middle somewhere and just being, which I'm sure you were.
Yeah.
But just being really clear and fair.
Yeah.
But hey, guys, we're a team.
Yeah.
And we've got to win.
Yeah.
We've got to win. We've got to get you up for game day, and we've got to win every day for our clients.
Yeah. And I think it's I struggled a lot with. I said on the outside I was the boss, and I was, they thought I was, confident and whatever. But I really struggled for a while there. It was like most of the times walking into Goldberg's, it was like I wasn't the owner. I just felt a sense of like it was bigger than me, and that even trying to go up and ask a staff member to do something especially in the kitchen, I felt a bit out of my depth or a bit awkward asking. It's a really weird. I was going, why do I feel like awkward walking into my own establishment?
business.
And I don't know whether it's I don't even know what that was. There was other days and I go, no, you know what? I'd walk in and go, mate, I'm so grateful. You know. But then other days, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's about finding the balance.
Yeah.
And I think there definitely has to be times where you are a hard boss, and there's other times where you have to be, quite gentle. And I think I probably people probably saw me more as their mate than their worker.
Yeah.
I think, staff take advantage of that, and that's through no fault of my own. But I think, in that could be a part of people pleasing, wanted to, and again, not wanting to rock the ship and make sure the slow train keeps moving, because at the end of the day it got to a point where if you've got a heap of staff turnover, that comes back to me, and I've got to look for new staff, put ads on, and then retrain them. And then after you did it for 17 and a half years, again, that comes back to that leadership and the hard work or whatever. That's why I ended up getting my children working there and gave them more responsibility. And I went,
give me 5. Mate, I love it, because we're talking to business owners, talking to leaders if they're not business owners, and it's like, okay, so how do we get the best out of people? How do we keep from being too hard or too soft? We talk a little bit about it here. It's like we need the ingredients, which is what we've been talking about today. We have this thought around leadership, and it's like we jumped straight to accountability. But it's probably number 4 on the list. So what we would say is you set the expectation. So it's, okay, guys, we're a team. We're all heading in the same direction. This is our goal. This is our objective. And for you in a cafe, it's like, hey, we just want to make this place the place to come.
To go,
for me, mate, to go to Goldberg's and just sit there and chill out. Happiest place on earth.
Great experience.
And you did that. So set the expectation, and then, okay, so for us to deliver this kind of consistency as a cafe, or for me as a builder, this is what's got to happen. This is the expectations. This is who we are. This is mission, vision, core values, all that sort of stuff. Then there's empower the outcome.
Right.
So we're like, all right, well, I can see, as a footballer, I can see that, you need to be faster. You need to be fitter. You need to work on your ball skills. You need to work on your kicking game. So like empowering the outcome of the people that we've got working with us. Then we're measuring the results. Like you said, we've got to go home. You've got to do the numbers. Where are we sitting? How's the team actually performing? And then lastly, we get to hold teams accountable in a way that's constructive for them and us. And so the problem I made, and look, we're never perfect, but the only one that you're left with if you don't do the other 3 is accountability. Because that's got to happen. Because if everyone's dropping the ball and you're making no money, you got to hold people accountable. But what we don't do as leaders is we don't necessarily do the other 3 well. Set the expectations from the beginning. Empower the outcome. Bring them on the journey with us. But like you said with your coaches, maybe you got to drag them in the office every now and again and say, "Hey, bro."
And I think that what I found is that it comes from clear communication.
Good, mate.
Clear communication. And I sometimes I fell into the trap of maybe do as I say, not as I do. Like I was aware of telling other people about communication, but then when it came to me as the leader. Same, I was a bit, a bit uncomfortable, delegating or someone where and again, that comes from my own internal thought processes where I should have been going, you know what, we've got a great product.
Yes.
My expectation, I have a really high expectation generally in life. And I remember saying, someone saying your expectation is too high, you need to drop it. But then, no, if you have a high standard, if someone wants to be around you or work in your capacity, they need to raise their standards instead of you lowering yours.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that hit me as well, because I remember people going, oh, you expect too much. And I was going, oh, hang on a minute, maybe I should back off a little bit, and then someone said, no, if you don't have an expectation, you just have a really high standard.
Yes.
And if someone wants to be in your space, they need to raise the bar, you don't need to lower it.
I love it.
Yeah, and I just went, wow, because you're actually just undervaluing yourself then.
Yeah.
My example was house cleaning at home. I like things being neat and tidy, and things put in place, Used to have probably OCD.
Yeah.
But now, as when you have kids and whatever, and you evolve and get a bit more older and relaxed, not as
You can't be, can you?
You can't, because you drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
So, but again, just having a good system in place and just showing that being neat and tidy, because I think that transitions over into, again, all facets. Your work life, your relationships, and if you've got a messy bed and you're throwing shit in the sink and all that. So I always just had a standard of just because it's it tells a story.
It really does. Yeah. And then empowering people to be able to hold that standard is a big one.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that sport and business transition is really important, because imagine going to your coach, imagine going to Tim Sheets and going, oh mate, bloody hell, your standards are pretty high.
Yeah.
They just look at you and go,
see you later, you better go.
Yeah. What do you mean, mate?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? But we have that, don't we, with our team sometimes.
Yeah.
And, it's all good. Of course, I'm sure even coaches, look at the way they lead and maybe, obviously, as they transition, they do things a lot differently.
Yeah.
But without standards, bro.
Yeah.
You don't win grand finals without standards.
No.
You don't win grand finals without hard work. You don't win the ingredients we've been talking about, the nuance of the game.
Yeah.
And it all stems from leadership, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, I've loved in the past when I've heard about and that team sport.
Yeah.
You talked about Mal Meninga.
Yeah.
As far as we talked about coaches, but you've got people like Mal Meninga. You've got people like Laurie Daly, Gary Belcher in your side.
Crazy.
All leaders. And I heard a footballer once, he worked with us for a little bit, and he talked about the difference between two sides that he played with was the standards that the players held to.
Yeah, and held each other accountable.
Yeah.
I had those three things that you said, and then the fourth one would be accountability.
Yep.
I think that's what they say about Melbourne. Their culture down there and their systems are just unbelievable, and everyone buys in from the top to the bottom.
That's
As
right.
you said, it has to start with the leader.
Yes.
And if you don't buy in,
Yep.
well, then you're out the door.
And so it's not so much a drop into the standards, it's actually setting them and then holding to them.
Holding to them.
And isn't it awesome to think that, that's not just the leader's job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing is as well, like people go, oh, mate, some people might say, as you said, these standards are too high. And if they're too high for you, that's okay.
It is okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. We're not trying to be full on, It's like,
some people, it's not. It's not for everyone.
That's right.
And if something's out of reach, or you think not that you're not good enough, it's just not for you. You know what? It's okay.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we need to say in society too.
Necessarily part of the team.
No.
Yeah.
There you go and play netball.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, well, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and that's what I teach my kids. Being okay is okay, and being not okay, that's also okay.
That's it.
Yeah, it's again how you process it and how you deal with things. And I think, you were talking on leadership before. We talk about business and everything. I think the biggest thing I've learned, particularly the last few years, thanks to my partner, my partner Shani, she's taught me a lot about consciousness and maturity. Yep. And the biggest thing I think is being a leader as a person to yourself.
Yeah, self-leadership.
Yeah, that self-leadership, And I go, you can't fool the man looking back at you in the mirror.
It's a good thought.
Yeah, so you know,
we'd like to.
I thought, yeah,
sometimes,
same. I've tried plenty of times through whatever form, but yeah, it's just about your own personal accountability, and as you said, we're not going to get it right all the time.
No,
but that's okay as long as you're aware, and yeah, you know, you just try and be better than what you were yesterday.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Because it takes all types.
Yeah.
We were talking before, we caught up before the pod, and, you know, we live in a society, I think, these days that we're very driven, you know, and so we're at the gym, we're up 4 a.m, we're drinking 20 litres of water a day, we're doing 50 push-ups, we're riding 16 kilometres, you know, and then we're going to work, and we've got families, we've got kids playing sport. Like, I mean, it's pretty full on. And it's funny, isn't it? Because we want to achieve, and I feel like it's part of the human psyche, that we want to reach our potential, you mentioned it before, and achieve, you know, in life to a degree. But there's no amount of achievement if we're not satisfied within our own selves that's going to satisfy us. You know?
Absolutely. If this is empty, the rest doesn't matter. So if you're not doing the work internally, doesn't matter any amount of work you do or any goals you tick or whatever. And I'm one of those people. I like to suck the juice out of every day. I like to get up and, you know, go. But I've also found it sometimes that's detrimental, you know, because you go, I want to, you know, be X amount of body fat, or, you know, do X amount of push-ups or squats, or, and then you get there, as we spoke about, you get there and you go, oh, is that all? I'll go again. So you're never quite satisfied. You know, and it's like, well, when's it end? You know,
when's it end? Yeah, it's like, and there's no amount of money that's enough. No, and there's, you know, no career that's quite itches quite enough. Scratch that itch. I mean, that's been, I would say, for me. We're talking about ingredients. It's been one of the big things that I need to learn, and still, it's like the grass isn't greener over the fence. I had to own where I was at, and I wasn't for so many years. I wasn't own where I was at, and so. If I jump the fence and then the grass starts going brown, I've got no bloody way of knowing how to get it going again. So how did
you change your mindset, like, to start probably accepting that a bit more?
Yeah, it's a good thought. So firstly, I actually came to the end of myself a fair bit because I kidded myself for a while that I just, you know, so I was in the building industry for now. I've probably been in there 33 years or something, but at the time it was probably 20 years. And so I fooled myself for a bit that I was just in the wrong career. So it was like, oh, I've just got to do something different. You know, I'm just over it. And that can be true in seasons. I actually have sold the business since, but I didn't feel like I was running, but I would have been then. And so firstly, I had to come to the end of myself, and I was feeding myself a lie that, you know, I think there's greener grass. So it got to the point that we wanted to sell our business. Fear, doubt, spinning my tyres, you know, feeling like I just can't move this thing forward. And what I realised, mate, is that I hadn't even done the work of leadership we talked about before. I hadn't started setting the expectation, empowering the outcome, measuring the results, or holding people accountable. I was doing plenty of holding people accountable, but I wasn't leading people. And so I was in a business that needed leadership, you know, and this is the thing we've talked about. I think it's okay, like, not everyone has to be a leader, not everyone has to be in business, but I was. And unfortunately, I'd stepped into a place that needed more of me than I was prepared to give or able to give.
The capacity.
To carry it, and mindset. And I was full of fear and doubt. And why it was good for me, though, is it exposed me. But in a safe environment. And so I had to face that man in the mirror. And so one of the things I had to start to say was, hey, mate, you're running. Why are you running? And so I had to start to learn. I had to start to bloody not think that I was good at everything. Or like,
you've got it sorted.
And just push past that pride. Mate, if I'm failing, I'm failing. Let me read that book and learn.
Deluded pride.
And then talk, talk to some blokes. You know, grab some fellas that were in the group with us and tell them how bloody ordinary I'm going and learn from them. And so slowly but surely, it's like you start to realise, well, one of the things too is I wasn't feeding myself. And so you're running on empty all the time. You've got nothing to give. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because people don't want to be around you. And so it was facing all of that. That was the first step. And then, mate, it was just like you've talked about, it's just a step-by-step process from there.
Yeah.
We started to realise systems and processes weren't in place.
Yep.
You know, I wasn't clear in my communication.
Yeah.
I hadn't set an expectation of the outcome. And then all of a sudden you start to get a couple of wins.
Yeah.
And then you build from there.
Yeah.
But there's no magic potion or silver bullet, and it doesn't happen overnight.
Nah.
But I was my biggest enemy.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, whoever you talk to, you've only got to scratch the surface and they all have a similar story. And what I find, like just listening to you then, that could probably be a carbon copy of my transcript, you know what I mean? So I was doing exactly the same thing, you know? And then you're just lying, you're kidding yourself, you know, and you're running, and then it's fear. So I think, you know, whilst 17 and a half years in a business was great, there was fear of me doing something else. I knew I wanted to do something else, but, you know, fear and, you know, as I said, pride and all those things come into play. And until you actually face yourself and face your, you know, your inner, not so much demons, but your inner thoughts and stuff that you can't really hide from, because what we do, we just keep shoving them down, and they're always bubbling below the surface until you deal with them and face them head on. And that's why my guys shove them down for their whole life.
They do.
And wonder why they're, you know, they end up either lonely or miserable and stuff, because, as you said, that stuff just eats you up.
It does, and we cope. Then we try to find coping mechanisms, don't we?
Yeah.
So one of the big things, bro, is we just need to stop assuming that everyone else is doing okay and we're not. That'd be the biggest thing, don't you think?
Yeah.
You know, like you look at, you know, all the players that you played with.
Yeah.
And, you know, we just did a podcast with Eric Grove last week.
Yeah.
You know, in the 80s, there wasn't any bigger, stronger player.
Wow, he was it.
You know, and he talked a lot about his insecurities, which is so cool, because I love it when we drop back and go, you know, everything looks great, but it never is.
Nah.
It doesn't matter who we are.
Yeah.
That'd be a big load off everyone's shoulders, eh?
Yeah.
You look at the guy who's fitter than you or got more money or driving the car, and it's like, oh, well, he's running his race, I'll run mine.
Yeah.
And be okay with ourselves.
Yeah.
It'd be a big start, which I wasn't back in the day.
Yeah, well, again, it takes a certain amount of courage, I believe, because guys are, you know, fearful of going, what are people going to think about me, you know? And, you know, there's some things, you know, I guess you got to keep close to your chest that some people can't let go of, you know, you don't. But for the main part, as you said, there's been a stigma around that for years, and it's really, I think it's great that it doesn't matter who you are, if you can pass a message on to someone, or they can just hear someone else talking, particularly if it's someone like an Eric Growth, that we're actually human, and we make mistakes.
Yeah.
And you know what? And there's no rule book that, I think we've brought up thinking that we're meant to be a certain way. You're meant to, you know, grow up, get married, have 2.5 kids, have a mortgage, and that's not the way it's meant to be, you know. There's no rule book, and just because you're doing something a certain way that's not what society thinks the norm, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that. And you're going to make stuff-ups, and, you know, people do things that, you know, they live to regret, but it's okay because you're human. And you know, I'm not overly religious, but I say to my partner and my kids and that, I go, look, there's only one person that can judge me, and that's the big fella upstairs.
Exactly.
And I even take it for my own thing. I say, how can I judge anyone? And, you know, sometimes I fall in the trap when I do.
We all do, but I get your thought.
Yeah, it's good. So I just go, I can't judge anyone, because I've made just as many mistakes and bad decisions as the next person. So, and that's where, like, you know, you judge people mucking around, but when it comes to the nitty-gritty of being serious, I go, I tell my kids, you can tell me whatever you like, you know, I won't judge you, and that way it gets it off your chest, and just be honest. I go, because we all make mistakes, you know, your father's done this and he's done that as well, and it's okay.
Take the pressure off.
Yeah.
If we just took the pressure off, so family, you know, sport, business, life, it's like, let's just take the pressure off. You know,
and the expectation that society has, you're meant to be a certain way, and that if you don't conform to society, that you're not a good person, or you're a failure, or this and that. Where I think it's the other way. I like the people that just go against the grain of society, not to an extent,
not an antagonistic way.
No, absolutely. But I just think we need to be a bit more. I don't know, but
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
No, mate, I agree with you completely. And so here's the tension, right? And so it's like we're business owners, you know, and I feel like what we've talked about today is you know, so key.
Yeah.
Being able to take the pressure off, to run our own race, you know, to avoid the extremes of, you know, mindset and all that sort of stuff. But we've still got to be able to turn up and win each day, don't we? You know, if we've got a business, we need to be able to, you know, serve our clients, serve them well, you know, to make sure that we're, you know, and so there is this underlying expectation in life, of course. It's that pendulum thing we're talking about again, because, you know, we could all be living on the beach, you know, living in hippie communes and all that sort of stuff. For whatever reason, it's not even what humans want.
No.
You know, there is something inside the human spirit that wants to achieve, that wants to do it shoulder to shoulder with your mate. I feel like it's just us being able to, again, respect what's central, and that's people.
Yes.
It's generally always comes back to people, and you've seen it yourself in business. You know, you see these guys that have got $1 billion and no friends.
Yeah, they're miserable.
And they've, you know, and we all make mistakes and stuff happens, of course. But when we make something that's not foundational, like money, you know, money's a byproduct. Yeah, but do we really want to?
No.
We really want to tread over people to be able to achieve it.
Yeah, when your whole existence based around money, it's not a good.
That's it.
It's not a good look. And as you said, I think the biggest thing is, when it comes down to it, is that we want to get back to, people want a sense of community. They want a sense of connection. But this day and age, I think we're more disconnected than we've ever been. We touched on it before, you know, through social media and the pressures of life, you know, inflation. And again, you need a certain amount of money to live. Yeah. But there's a lot of pressure, you know, that people place on themselves, and they, I think it's, I think you just got to wake up each day and what's important, you know. And I wake up every day, and I'm grateful for what I have. I think as you get older, you realise that less is more. Yeah. So I'm grateful for my health.
Gratitude.
Grateful for my health, grateful for a roof over my head, grateful for food on the table.
Yeah.
They're the small wins, and I think we can have, as you said before about wins, you know, you've got to win the day. I've, you know, read some great things where the best way you have the small wins. Get up and make your bed. Yeah. That's a win.
Yeah, it's good.
Get up and go and have a cup of coffee and watch the ocean. That's a win.
That's a massive win.
That's a massive win. Yeah. You know,
no oceans in Tamworth, bro.
Well, go and walk the farm. Yeah. So just little things like that, because I think when people say win, if they haven't made X, and again, it comes back to, they can say, if I didn't make $5,000 a day at the shop or whatever, it's a fail. Or, you know, you can put too bigger emphasis on what a win is. Whereas if you break it down, like, you know, if you can get up and start the morning, you know, with some Mother Nature, and, you know, and realise, you know, you've got a beautiful roof over your head, and you get the choice to go and have a coffee somewhere in a good little community where people are buzzing. Like, what more could you want than that? Yeah,
it's good too. I think, and sport obviously does this well, defining what winning looks like.
Yes.
And I reckon this is part of what we struggle with a little.
Yeah.
Is that we haven't really defined what a win looks like.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we look at other people's lives and we go, oh, that's what winning is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Comparison,
I'll do that.
A thief of joy.
Oh, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're talking about, I think. It's like, all right, well, we need to, as humans, we need to achieve.
Yeah.
You know, there's something in us.
You've got to have purpose.
Yeah, people go to war, mate, give their life. You know, and not all of them under duress.
Yeah.
Most choose.
Yeah, willing, yeah.
So there is something in the human spirit that wants to achieve stuff. That's a really good thing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if we're not doing it together with people, and we've got the money, we've got the car, but we haven't got people, we haven't got community.
Yeah, it's quite shallow.
Oh, it is. And so what does winning look like? It's like, what does a win look like in our lives?
Define winning. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, that's like a good one is people say, oh, you're normal or whatever. And I go, well, define normal.
Define normal.
Again, it's just down to your interpretation. But I think the biggest thing is you just have to be realistic.
Yeah.
You know, realistic about life and, you know, about your own abilities and, you know, what you want out of life, I think, you know. And people probably lose track of that, I guess.
Yeah, I reckon finding where you fit's a big one too, isn't it?
Yeah.
You mentioned comparison. The one way to beat comparison is find where you fit.
Yeah.
Know yourself.
Yeah.
Don't be too hard on yourself, but don't be too soft on yourself.
Yeah.
Avoid those pendulum swings, if you will.
Yeah.
Because we might surprise ourselves what we can actually achieve in life together if we, as business owners, getting back to that.
Yeah.
Mate, nobody gets into business and leadership to keep doing all the work, put out every fire, solve every problem.
That's right.
And yet that's what happens in leadership.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a win.
Nah.
So we need to, there's one good model. Let's avoid that.
Yeah.
And so when we get our teams together, it's like, okay, guys, this is what we need to achieve today.
Yeah.
Let's, what can I do to help you?
Yeah.
This is what we're going to measure, and if we drop the ball, of course, we're going to talk to each other.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be full on.
Nah.
It's just like, and then when you think about that, even in family, unfortunately, kids got to get up.
Yeah.
They've got to go to school, make their bed, brush their teeth.
Yeah.
It's just part of life.
And they're going to have teenage attitude and whatever else.
Yeah.
All the stuff that comes with it. But again, it's how you frame it, and even getting back to comparison, and whether it be businesses, whether it be kids' ability in sport, and the way people run building companies, whatever. There's always going to be someone better than you, and someone worse than you, and you've just got to be happy with your lot, knowing that you give your best. As I said, you just give your best on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes your best is going to be off. Yeah. But that's okay. But as long as you get up going, doing the best, I did the best I could with the tools I had at that point in time, and then you just try and build on that. I think then you get a fair bit of contentment, or joy out of, your own life, instead of like going, I wonder what Joe Blow's doing, or, such and such. And just, again, I think your internal mindset. Yeah. And, just giving yourself, some love.
Yes, bro. And contentment.
Yeah, contentment.
It's kind of a byproduct, contentment, isn't it? It's like, okay, well, you don't turn up content.
No.
You sort of wrestle yourself into contentment.
Yeah. You got to go through this, let's say personally, I've had money, I've lost money, I've had, I've been divorced, I've had failed relationships, all from my own doing, the majority of the choices that I made. Yeah. But when you go through that, if you actually do the work and work out the stuff that you failed at, or that you need to do better along the way, you get to a point and you go, what's important?
What's important?
And what's important?
What's a win look like?
What's important? What's a little win look like? And a big win for me isn't big bags of money, because I've seen that poison people. Isn't a big flash house. And it's not for everyone. People go, oh, how can you have that? I need money, or I need a big house, whatever. Everyone's different, and so wherever you find your contentment, that's cool. But that's I just find mine through my tight circle. I said gratitude of a morning for the small things, contentment in getting up each day, my children, a close circle, and even now that I'm out of business, having the capacity to choose things that I want to do when I want to do, not because I have to do them because I'm chained to a business, 9 to 5, like, coming here doing a podcast, like it's fucking great.
That's so good, mate. And what are you doing now? What are you doing?
Well, I said I retired, or semi-retired. I didn't mean to retired. I wasn't going to retire. I always wanted to do something else, but at my own pace and my own leisure. So that was June. I'm now 7 months down the track, and I said I was going to start looking at some stuff, in the new year. But for me, something that evolved organically is therapeutic peptides.
Okay.
So I started, because I look after myself, and it's given me more time and space now to train, and I'm into the wellness and longevity space, which is pretty heavily saturated this day and age, and just trying to optimize, I should say, like the way I feel, and what I'm doing with my life, and I pass a bit of that knowledge on. Again, it's just my opinion and belief. Like, people come up and say, "Geez, you're looking fit. What are you doing?" And I go, "Well, look, I'm not a doctor or whatever, but this is what I do that works for me, and we're all different." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And so, and then if you can give someone one person, two people, a little bit of advice or steer in the right direction, and they come back and see you and go, thanks so much for that. Like, that's amazing.
So good, bro.
I just go, mate, that's the best. I've served my purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've found since getting out of the cafe and stuff. My purpose is helping people.
Yeah.
You know, if I can pass a message on or some form of advice that helps them, such a great feeling.
Oh, mate, it's the best.
It's the greatest.
Isn't it funny, though? Because when we boil it all down, mate, business is helping people.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a business on the planet that's not in some way helping people, and that's why they do it.
Yeah.
Service industry, whatever it is, it's serving people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a bit of authenticity in the way you do that as well. Like you said, we're serving people, but the ones that are really successful, the people know, they can actually tell. People can actually tell that, wow, these guys love this job and love what they do, whereas there can be other people in that industry that are just doing, I just want to make some money and do all that. And I think you follow the crowds, and you know that's where the people go when they see the owner or whatever. It's that authenticity about it.
Yeah, that's so good. Making it about what it's really about.
Yeah,
it's
about people.
Yeah, it's so good, bro.
Yeah.
Well, mate, this has been a blast for me.
Yeah.
It's been really good hearing your story and getting to know you a bit, and talk about this kind of stuff. I love it.
Yeah, so, you too. I've loved it, and thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, mate. I love it when people drop back, guys that have had success in their life, and tell the real story behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But mate, I just want to finish with this: is that it's very rare to achieve what you've achieved. Longevity in the NRL, longevity in business. You know, a father. You know, and it's just to be able to talk about it, warts and all.
Yeah.
You know, to not make it more than it is or less than it is.
Yeah.
It's been a real privilege, mate, and it's a real honour.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dan.